Hey everyone, this is WobblyWallaby. Today I'll be showing my PvE build for Magic Dragon Breath Rune Master, which is capable of soloing some Legend instance floors. How far will I progress? Stay tuned to find out. Also, great news, I have codes to give away. I have 10 C, 5 global, and 5 EU codes. In the comments, say what off-meta class or builds do you enjoy playing. Please include your Discord ID and which server you play on, such as C, Global, or EU. Winners will get codes January 20th, 2024. I look forward to reading your comments, and I may try some of those builds out myself. First, why do a Magic Dragon Breath build in 2024? Well, the Magic Dragon Breath build has always been a fascination of mine. Many years ago, I used to watch the YouTuber Darwislim play Magic Dragon Breath Rune Master in both PvP and PvE. It seemed like a lot of fun, and he was killing a ton. In late 2023, when I was finally able to finish my Wrathgressy build, I was able to finally get a plus 15 Dragon Howl. Having a plus 15 refined level of this weapon is absolutely required to play this class. This is because it gives an extra 200% modifier for Dragon Breath and Dragon Water Breath. There were quite a few updates to ROM in 2023 as well. Two key updates that affected this build were: first, the introduction of the tier 5 weapon, which made Dragon Howl viable for Legend instances. Demonic Breath, which actually means Magic Dragon Breath, is able to do damage over time. Every 0.5 seconds, it can inflict 0.2 times MDB damage for 1.5 seconds, which allows you to deal with bosses that have a damage cap. If you hit hard, you may see a fancy number, but your damage is capped. That is why one-shot classes like Dragon Fist do very poorly in Legend instances, and being able to deal high damage quickly is more ideal. Casting Magic Dragon Breath is kinda slow compared to some other classes, but this damage over time helps compensate for that. Secondly, the Yimmer switch can now happen outside of the cities, which means they work in PvE instances. For example, here is my MDef build with tons of MDef gear. With the MDef switch, I'm able to get 46,000 magic attack due to the skill Sink or Swim. That is because my MDef gear gives me 10,000 magic defense. If I don't use the MDef switch gear and I just use my DPS gear, my MDef is at 5,094. And after casting Sink or Swim, my magic attack is at 28,000. So this MDef switch is a big difference. Taking advantage of this mechanic is incredibly important, but unfortunately this only works inside instances, not in the wild, so you can't do this for boss hunting or void. Next, for this video, I set my Adventure Handbook deposit to 70% to keep it consistent with my other build guides. I have 3,266 attack and 2,649 magic attack. Let's first begin with my Legend instance attempt, and then I'll show my complete build after. I first do my MDef switch with my Yimmer's Notebook. I cast Prepare for Elite, which contains Sink or Swim to convert my MDef into magic attack. I cast Abyssal Arrival. I want the 30% ignore defense that comes with it. I hit the Golem with Magic Dragon Breath. My Magic Dragon Breath hits for 42.8 million, but due to the damage cap, it won't actually decrease that much health from the Golem. The tier 5 effect of the 0.2 damage shows up here, and it deals 8.5 million damage every 0.5 seconds, and that helps you decrease the Golem's health quite quickly. However, one unfortunate thing with this build is the big drop in damage when HP Light is off. Your Dragon Breath and Dragon Water Breath loses 20% damage if not in the HP Light status. So when I cast Asphyxia for immunity, that did kill my damage since my HP goes to 1. In fights like these, it's also hard to MDef switch mid-fight. Usually when I MDef switch with other classes like Ronin, I have teammates distracting the boss so I can do it. That went pretty smooth. The Golem went down pretty fast for this deposit level. Next I'll show my gear. Here's the overview of my gear. Here's the overview of my shadow equipment, Oracle Mirror, and relics. I quickly show my deposit again to show it is at 70%. Next, here's an overview of my MDef gear as well as some slight modifications for shadow equipment. Next, I show my attributes and stats after doing the MDef switch and then using my DPS gear. For attributes, I max out Vit since that contributes to damage and will outscale strength. Next, I max Int since I want to take advantage of the MDef switching and Synchro Swim. The higher magic attack will scale like crazy. Finally, I have the rest in strength. Also, I did have enough dex to insta-cast, which is why I don't invest in it. For stats with self buffs and food, I have 22,000 attack and 46,000 magic attack. I have 62% penetration, 43.5% skill damage increase, 114.7% damage, 107.7% physical damage increase, 169.1% ignore defense, I have 90% fire damage, and 129% water damage. Next, I'll look into the gear in detail. For offhand, I use the Dragonbone Shield. I don't use the Ignore Defense offhands because Abyss Arrival gives 30%, and Death Awakens gives you 30% Ignore Defense with a tier 5 weapon, so you can get away with 170% Ignore Defense. I have the 18% physical damage increase random attribute. I use the Ancient Artifact User card for damaged MVPs. Next, for armor, I use the Other Short Patrol for the increased damage for water and fire. Being able to take advantage of both since Magic Dragon Breath is water and fire is excellent. Try to get the 20% elemental damage random attribute. For card, I use the Poitata card for damage to non-demi-human monsters. Next, for garment, I use Lita's Pauldron for the skill damage and ignore defense. I use the Golden Flame King card for the damaged MVPs. Next, I use Fair Judgment for the physical and magic attack percentage. For card, I use the Familiar Star card for the magic attack. Next, against the Golem, I use the Fluorite button for water attack. Besides this Golem, normally I use the fire accessories instead. For card, I use the Moonlight Tendrillion Star card for skill damage. For my next accessory, I use another water accessory and the same card for the same reasons. Next, for weapon, I use the Dragon Howl. To play this build, you will need Refine 15. Again, the tier 5 effects of this weapon are crazy and made it viable for PvE. Next, for cards, I use the Drake Star card and the Minoru Star card for dealing with large monsters. Next, I use Homestead of Snowy Owl, which increases your water and fire attack. Also, if you deal with the inferior element, you get an extra 10% as well. For card, I use the Machine Dragon Wing card for damaged MVPs. Next, I use the Winter Crown for the skill damage since I don't have the Zanubia card. Next, I use Ocean's Attachment for damaged MVPs. Next, for Beck, I use the Goodwill Gift Box for damaged MVPs. Next, for Tail, I use It's Too Late for the skill damage. Here are my shadow equipments. I will just show the overview. For Chimera, I use the Bill for the MVP damage. I also use Cardo for more MDef. For Relic, I use the Lord of Vane. Next, I switch to my MDef build. I use All Souls Return because it gave me the 36% MDef random attribute. For card, I use the Tomb Zombie card for more MDef. Next, I use the Other Shore Patrol for the 24% MDef random attribute. Other Shore also gives me 15% magic defense. Next, for card, I use the Rock Spirit Turtle for 15% magic defense. Next, I use the Mithril Magic Mento for the magic defense. I couldn't get a higher refine, so I would get 15% magic defense. Next, I use Goldbean's Greaves for the magic defense, 10% at refine 10, not too bad. I also use the Fawn card for more int. Next, I use the Diamond Earring with the 12% magic defense random attribute. I use the Quoof card for the 2% magic defense. Next, I use the Void Crystal with the 12% magic defense random attribute. I use the Quiff card for the 2% magic defense. Next, I use a 2-socketed spear and put 2 sting cards into it for 20% more magic defense. Next I use Gloomy Witch's Headwear for 5% magic defense. For a card Gibbet gives me 10% magic defense. Next I use Nightmare Ghost Face. At Refine 4 it gives 14% magic defense. Next is Night Before Assessment for 5% magic defense. This mount was only available back when they gave accelerated accounts. Next is Fantasy Pouring Ferris Wheel for 10% magic defense. And finally, MDef Fairy for some raw magic defense. Next are Advanced Runes. I purposely don't use Arcane Runes because I think that will skew people's expectation too much. They can be pretty busted at higher levels. Here's my orientation. Remove Armor Breaking if you have better luck with your Morale enchants. For Death Cage Star Ruin, a nice second line will give you more Life Leech. Next is Berserk Breath Ruin. Try to get a high first line, then ideally a high second line if you need to deal with mobs. Next for Edgemark Ruin, you want the third line and a good first line. Next for Darkness Awakening, a high first line gives you more survivability, so I'd aim for a high first line if possible. Next for Dark Dragon Flame Star, get a high first line for having some dark damage to your Magic Dragon Breath. A good second line is good versus mobs. Finally, weapon blocking with the third line gives you some good survivability to block attacks. If I felt like cheating and using Arcane Ruins, I'd use the White Blade Ruin, which is good against solo bosses, and War Preparedness Ruin to gain a self-shield. Next are skills. Here are my Swordsman skills. Here are my Knight skills. The reason why Aura Blade is at level 20 is due to the Acer effect. You get 30 more attack per level. Next, here are my Lord Knight skills. For Sword Parry, I invested 10 points only because I had the third line weapon blocking Ruin. If you don't have this, invest less in it. Next, Call of Justice is one of the reasons why Vit is important for Magic Dragon Breath for dealing more damage. Next, HP at light at 10 ensures it lasts for 30 seconds. Going higher will not increase the duration further. If your HP does go below 10%, you do need to recast it, so try not to cast Asphyxia right after, otherwise it goes away. Next, here are my Ruin Knight skills. Sink or Swim makes MDef switching truly insane, and this is one of the most broken skills for Rune Masters. Next for Rune Masters, just max out all the skills. In my manual bar I have Abyss Arrival, Asphyxia, The Death Awakens, Frenzy, HP at Light, and Prepare for Elite. Having HP at Light here can help you recast it if you need to after Asphyxia or Anti-Death. For Auto Attack, I have the Magic Dragon Breath only. For Prepare for Elite, I have Endure, Concentration, Lord's Aura, Heart of Steel, Sword Parry, HP at Light, and Sink or Swim. Next is my run against the Sea Spirit Totem. I do my MDef switch with my Yimmers. I cast Abyss Arrival, then start doing Magic Dragon Breath. The damage over time is fantastic. The Sea Spirit Totem is at 63% before I have to turn away. I turn back around and then use the Death Awaken for a big damage boost. I also cast Asphyxia before I'm about to die. My damage is lower since HP at Light is gone. I was tempted to do my MDef switch again, but the totem was about dead and I didn't want to risk dying because it does take a couple seconds. Next I show my gear. The only changes was I swapped in the fire accessories and used the Mao Guai card for dealing with ghosts. Also, one thing that sucks about Yimmer switching is you do have to save your cards again. Next for floor 3, I did make a few attempts. Here's one of the better ones. I think the problem with soloing floor 3 is it's nearly impossible without the HP relic or having anti-death skills. Rune Master does have anti-death, but it can deal with some of it, but not all of it. The third floor just has so many ways for you to die. With a Saint of Faith Prey and Res, I'm sure I could solo DPS it, but soloing is just too hard. Next I'll show my attempt at the Legend Dragon. I do the same strategies as before, but I think survivability is a problem yet again. I think I need the HP Relic to do better here to solo. Magic Dragon Breath's AoE is nice against those Wyrmlings. When I compare this build with the Ronin build which I had previously done with the same deposit and gear, I was able to kill this dragon in 30 seconds. So this build is definitely not S tier. But this is still pretty fun to play since you have to use your skills effectively. You can't just full auto like Rathkrasty either. Next I'll do some instances that have mobs. In Oracle Elite 13 it does pretty well against the mobs. You can easily inflict fear, burn, or freeze and then combo that with the Or Spirit card. This is because these status effects are built into the Rune Master's skills. You can also further improve this by using the Poison Tail. Here's my gear overview for the mobs. I was using the same build in White Star Airship. It did okay for mobs, but I didn't see anyone using Magic Dragon Breath for this instance. I think its damage is a bit too low, and the damage versus bosses is a bit bad. Rathkrasty and Ronin are much better for dealing with mobs and bosses. Also, Saint and Ninjas are also very popular right now, so there isn't much room for some off-meta fun. Overall, it was a fun experience to try this out. This build actually performed much better than I thought, and it was fun to play. I'd say this is A tier and is definitely a cheaper alternative to the Auto Attack Rune Master build. Also, this would probably do pretty well in Oracle and Echoing Corridor if you struggle with those, but a bit too slow for White Star Airship. This is an A tier build and definitely a cheaper alternative to the Auto Attack Rune Master build, which would be S tier, but also very expensive. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Here's a video that I would recommend, and if you want more Rune Master guides, check out this playlist over here.